Okay, welcome to the Ruins Roundtable. Let's just start off with what is everybody's opinion on this album?
I genuinely enjoyed it. I found it was an amazing album after heartbreak, but also as an individual that is not in a relationship, because it emphasizes moving forward alone, but also with friends and family. And I felt that that was really, really incredible, but it also had this very, very bittersweet tone to it of leaving people behind.
And kind of off of that, I've never been in a relationship. So listening to this album that in a lot of ways is about the endings of romantic relationships, I didn't think I would personally relate to any of them. But I was genuinely moved by a lot of them, and there were things in each of them that I found I connected with, which was really interesting. And the music's just wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I felt a lot of connection with a lot of songs just because of my personal experience. But what I liked really most about the album is that it really draws on, you can tell it's drawing on different types of Americana folk in each song. And I really like that. It's kind of like, well, here's a whole bunch of heartbreak songs, but they're each so different. And you kind of get well, this is what their influences are. And I like that. And I went back and listened to the rest of their music just because of that, right?
Yeah, personally, just going off the heartbreak theme there, hadn't really experienced any relationship heartbreak, but just the songs were enough to make you feel any kind of heartbreak, and it was just relatable on a whole bunch of levels, like you said. It wasn't, I think, specific to just one sort of experience, which is good because you connect with all audiences.
Right, yeah.
And off that, each song does approach, the endings of relationships so differently.
Right.
You have, opening with Rebel Heart, which is all about the person who's singing it. It's about your heart, and it's about why do we run from relationships, as a person. But then you also have, Hem of Her Dress, where it's you cheated on me, but now we're all going to sing together. Because that's just the album.
Right. And then, in Postcard, too, it's kind of, it's a relationship's ended, but it's not, I don't hate you. It's kind of I want to know how things are with you. And I, personally, I have those kind of relationships.
Yeah, it's
those
much
endings.
more healing than just a break and move on,
right?
Which is what the album really focuses on, is moving forward, right?
But I feel it's not, I don't hear that often in a heartbreak kind of song.
Not at all.
It's more I'm so hurt.
Postcard is also really interesting because it's this very, very traditional country song, and it shows that within the lyrics as well, because it's the idea of sending a postcard to the lover that is gone, and I think that shows up in country a lot.
And I think you definitely got that in her her vocal phrasing and everything, and I believe I read an interview where they said that's their most traditional they've ever gone.
Yeah.
There's also this theme, every song is about life, I think. It's about life and moving through life, and there's this theme of running that is really, really interesting through each song, because it's you're running through life and you can't stop, but it's also sort of a bad thing at the same time, because it's almost they just cannot stop and take a break when moving away from endings and just running, basically, but you're always running with somebody.
Right.
And it's also interesting looking back to their last album, which was 4 years ago, Stay Gold, and it was all about this is amazing, where do we go from here? What if things don't stay this amazing all the time? And then 4 years later we have Ruins, which is just this wonderful journey if you look through their discography. But it's not a defeat. Ruins isn't a defeat, even though each song is about ending and moving forward. It's just about transitioning, which is so wonderful, because transitions aren't always bad, and you're trying to say something, so go ahead.
And that's even more wonderful because they just had a breakup with each other almost, where they had this sort of fallout between each other and their lives just fell apart. And this is almost repairing that ending that happened, that ending that almost happened, and saying, okay, this happened, we ended in ruins, but we're going to pick up the ruins and remake ourselves.
Yeah, it's clearly very healing to the audience, but also to them. It's very much their relationship mending back together.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so easy to relate to it, because it is coming from an authentic point of view, especially once you've read their history.
And I don't know how much of the relationship between the sisters changed in those 4 years because like different interviews say different things, and I don't know what actually came from them. And like I just know that they did say they were trying to like find who they were outside of their music and this duo, which is kind of interesting because that's fun. And I was gonna say I was at their concert last Saturday, and they were joking at one point about that we're gonna switch to a happier song, because they have so many happy songs, and they were joking about the fact that all of their songs aren't happy, but they're about how to navigate life, which I think really speaks to this album especially.
I feel like I didn't get overly, like, this is a sad album.
No.
But I don't think it's necessarily happy all the time.
No, but I think positive.
Yeah.
It's positive. Maybe it's not happy.
And that was their joke.
Yeah.
They were moving from a song from one of their previous. They did a song called "You Are the Problem Here," and it was about sexual assault and all of that horrible stuff. And so their joke after that song was,
okay.
Now we're going to move into a happy song, and they went into "Live a Life," which is.
I mean, it's a reclamation of themselves.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I'm going with that, but
That's okay.
Yeah.
And I think it is a celebration of, like, especially like, if you look at Ruins, like, you have this idea of, like, you're getting through things, and when you look back, you see the ruins you left behind, but you've gotten through them.
Yeah.
And then you get to Nothing Has to Be True, which is just, everyone's a mess by Nothing Has to Be True, and that's okay. And so ending on that song, I think, is a really cool choice.
Yeah.
Because it's not, like, Hem of Her Dress, even though it's an awful, like, you cheated on me, it ends with everyone singing.
Yeah.
And if you're not listening to the words, it's a really happy, beautiful song.
Did anyone else get kind of I don't know why, but I felt like Irish rock? I got that feeling from that.
And I think Hem of Her Dress, like, I don't know if they necessarily intended this, but I assume they did, is an influence from Bright Eyes. And in one of Bright Eyes' songs, Laura Loren, I think that's how you pronounce it, they have almost the exact same segment where they yell, here, like, everybody, or like, here we go, and then they sing La La La.
Yeah.
And it's just a slightly different tune, but it's the same feeling of community and everyone singing.
And I think on that note, Rebel Heart is actually really important as well. Because Rebel Heart is this really, really sorrowful song, and like this talking about how your heart betrays you. But then you get to the end, and there's this massive instrumental at the end of it. It's like saying, but we're moving on. We keep moving forward. There is joy after this, and despite this. That's a good point.
And opening with that self-reflection of you open with Heartbeat, and then you have, like, you told me once I have a rebel heart, and like, maybe I do, and then it's this, why do I keep running from things? And then it goes into It's a Shame, and all of a sudden this woman's not running, and it's a shame that I'm staying, like, I'm not walking, and it's just such a journey through the album.
That song really opens up the tone for the whole album, right? Because the whole album is very, like, self-reflective, right? The whole thing is just, like, examining themselves, which makes you examine yourself when you're listening to it.
Yeah, I thought the structure or the order that they chose to put their songs in was really interesting, because it does start with a very personal one, but it does open up the album, and then you get to Postcard, where it just kind of, like, takes you kind of on a journey, like a breakup does.
But
right?
see, I'd argue that all of them are personal, and I think that's one of the coolest things.
Some of them were
First
less
Aid
so.
But I think for me, my favorite thing about this band that, like, I wasn't a huge fan of before I actually listened to them, and now I love their music, is that they do write from such a personal spot, and I think that's why it's relatable. Is because they're talking about these. I know some people hate the word universal, but these universal themes and these things that everyone can relate to, but from, like, this is what I went through in music. Yeah. Here you go. And it's just so vulnerable and open, and then even listening to their voice, like, there's just so much ease and effortlessness to their music, despite these super personal, really difficult topics.
And it's almost as though, like, that you think of it as an isolated person whenever they're singing together, but they're always together as one. So they're always together as one. So they're both isolated and yet together at the exact same time.
Right. So, sorry, I was going to ask what favorite tracks everyone has.
Oh, that's a hard one.
Definitely Fireworks.
Fireworks? The more I listen to the whole album, because I keep going back to it, I love it too.
I know.
The more I I like different songs. I think at first, Rebel Heart was fantastic. It was my favorite song. And Postcard. But now Fireworks and Hem of Her Dress really are standing out more and
It really
more.
depends on the mood of the
I
day.
think so. And I
Yeah.
think that's what I like about it too, because there's so many different interpretations of heartbreak that it's
so flexible in that way.
yeah.
I have to say, I love Hem of Her Dress simply because it just breaks out into that massive song at the end, and I find that is just my favorite part of the entire album. So Hem of Her Dress is just my favorite simply because of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I first listened to it, Distant Star was one of my favorites, which is one that we don't really talk about. Like, because I talk about this with my roommate all the time, and we don't really talk about Distant Star. But the Saturday concert, and I hate like harkening back to that and be like, haha, I got to go. But they got everyone in that room to sing Hem of Her Dress at the end. So they taught you that section, and standing in the middle of a room with like hundreds of people singing that, and like the way they staged it, so wonderful. So I think that's also one of my favorites.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just having that live experience with that particular song. Yeah. I was going to actually go back to one of your points about, like, I don't actually remember what you said, but the idea of, like, the way the two voices blend together and the fact that we have all these beautiful harmonies, and because they are sisters, their voices, like, effortlessly work together until, well, no, they still are effort at the end, but Nothing Has to Be True, they have trading melodies instead of harmonies, which is really interesting because for 10 years that they've been singing together, they have this, always, like, they do this, like, harmonies, and Clara is usually on melody, and Joanna is usually on harmony, and then Nothing Has to Be True, it's one, and then the other, and back and forth, and it's just beautiful. In case you didn't know my opinions about this already.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the first songs that they've ever done where they where they've done the only song where they're not together at one point in time in the song. Like they've never done separate. Yes.
Yeah.
Which makes sense given the history of this album, right? Given the history of the album.
Yeah, and like the fact they are separate, like as much as they are a duo, they are their own people,
And it's actually a reclamation of themselves as well, because before they were trying to figure out their identity within the band, and now they kind of sort of, they're separate entities. They're not just this band anymore. They are themselves.
I like that. Okay. That makes me so happy. That was just a really good way to like tie together the album. I think the only other thing I would say that's kind of on a tangent now, I'm just looking at my notes, is like the musicality of every song. If you listen to the music without the words, in so many of them, they're these beautiful songs that are not sad. And then you listen to the words, and they go back to that self-reflection. And I think in a way, okay, we're good. In a way, like, it makes you reflect on yourself. And so as they become their own people, like, you go on a journey that, like, starts you on that journey of be your own person and be yourself.
It makes you want to remake yourself.
That's a better way of phrasing it.
In that way, I would argue it's almost not like a heartbreak album. Like, it's not something you put on to feel bad about for yourself, right? You put it on to heal, to, like, feel better.
Yeah, definitely. There's a sense of, like, catharsis when you listen to it.
Like, you can still put it on to cry, but it's not, like, devastating tears. It's like, this is beautiful and...
This is life tears.
life tears!
I don't know that I cry when I listen to it, but...
I know we had this debate already.
I'm just not a crier. Sorry.
Whereas I am.
With you on that.
Okay, so we're running out of time, so final thoughts?
I love this album. So I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10, simply because it made me think, it made me want to remake it myself, and it made me just fall in love with First Aid Kit.
9 out of 10 because it made me cry a lot.
I'd say like solid 8 or 9 because I just feel like it's very versatile. I listen to it. I have gone back and listened to more of First Aid Kit, and I will definitely make my friends listen to it in the future.
I'm in love with this album, so I would give it a 10 out of 10 just because I think it's perfect, but that's my opinion.
Okay, and that is the Roundtable for Ruins by First Aid Kit.